Okay, in that last video I promised you some government secrets, so I'm going to start back around World War II. Today is the 30th anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down, 1989. But it started back in World War II, after Hitler was, defeated and everything. He had taken over some countries, Poland, Romania, France, and the Americans came in with the British and whatnot, and they pushed Hitler back to Berlin. Well, the Russians were coming in, they were mad. Hitler had invaded Russia, and so good movie about that. So mostly the cold weather and stuff froze out the Germans. They had this long supply line and everything. And so after World War II anyway, the Russians claimed everything east of Germany, right up to Berlin and the Berlin Wall. Well, the Americans left, basically. We let the Germans have Germany, and we let the French people have France, and the Polish people were behind the Iron Curtain. And but Russia didn't leave. They wanted to make that their territory now. Part of Russia, the Soviet Union. It made them bigger and more powerful. And plus there was resources in those countries they could take and claim, it's ours now. We took over the country from Hitler, who had captured it. So basically, it's more involved than that. But hey, you dogs be good while I'm making a video. I know you like to help. So, anyway, the Russians got the idea they could take over the world, I think. And you remember John Kennedy, they were trying to move missiles. John F. Kennedy, not the senator we have now that's got his head up. Not the one we have now. So, in 1962, the Russians tried to move missiles into Cuba. And the president stood up to that, and he said, turn those missiles around. It's an act of war, and you're not putting missiles in Cuba. They were not intercontinental ballistic. Maybe they were. They were not surface-to-air missiles like, Cuba's getting invaded. They were threatening the United States because they pretty much had Cuba under control. So Kennedy told them to get out. Well, it was a controversial thing about Kennedy. Did the Russians have something to do with killing Kennedy? Because Lee Harvey Oswald had gone to Cuba and then to Russia. He was a private in the Army. He didn't have the financial resources to be globetrotting around. And, he killed Kennedy. And there's published reports of, was there Russian involvement in the Kennedy killing. So, time goes on. Now we get Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan stood up to he was like Kennedy. He was president of the United States, and he stood up for the United States, and he said to Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Well, those countries that had been taken over by Russia to be part of the Soviet Socialist Republic, or whatever it was, USSR, he said, set them free. That's what democracy is. People get a choice and they get a vote, and the people have a voice in the way the government's run, which was how America was founded. And, we're supposed to, the people have a voice. So, he told him, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Well, it took 3 years after Ronald Reagan was gone out of office, but sure enough they did. And today is the 30th anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down. So I thought I'd make this video. And so now time goes on, but in the meantime, if we're Americans and we're busy, we're doing car stuff and whatnot, the Soviets were thinking, we're going to take over the planet here. We're going to be the supreme power on this planet, and we're going to rule the world. And so we're thinking something different over here. We're thinking we're free and we could do whatever we want, and we're busy doing it. So all this kind of involved, but the Russians didn't stop. They are still trying to take over. Vladimir Putin was there when they lost the Soviet Republic or whatever, and it went back. All those countries wanted to be free. They wanted to be their own country, not part of the Soviet Union. So, and decide for themselves what was going to happen in their country, just like America. And so we're not noticing this, but in 2014 they took over Ukraine. They just sent in the army and took over, and they've been taken over ever since. And part of it goes back to what World War II is about. They want the resources of the countries. So, we've had our presidents run the Russians off before and tell them don't do it. You're a little dinky country, really, the 8th largest economy in the world, behind California, actually, the economy. And in America, we spend 10 times what the next country spends on the military. So, but the Soviet Union does have nuclear weapons, and they are a threat, and they are kind of crazy. They got crazy people running it. If you've seen Khrushchev take his shoe off and beat on the podium and say, "We will bury you," is what Khrushchev said, and they've been working on that plan ever since, because in their mind they think they should take over countries just like Hitler thought. So, and they got a bunch of people thinking like that there. And they're mad about the Soviet Union being broke up. They want all those countries to pay taxes to them. So, and have advantage of their resources, because the people at the top get the best advantage of those resources. So they hype up the people to think we should be taking over these other countries. That's my dog Chiquita, and she's a pest. But so now they are taking over other countries. Now we have missiles in Cuba. Our president has let them put missiles in Cuba. Didn't say a word. We've been run out of Venezuela. They have oil, which is one of the big Soviet things. They want the oil. They're even taking over in the Arctic, where there's nobody up there. They're taking over the Arctic Circle and claiming all that as the ice is melting. Trump thought we ought to get Greenland, but the Russians are claiming the Arctic Circle, and they're putting military bases up there. And we left Syria. Our president pulled out our guys. There was nobody getting killed there, but when we left, people are getting killed. But we're protecting the oil, see. And in my very first couple videos, I said I'm going to talk about renewable fuels and politicians and pollution. And all this is interconnected between politics and oil. And oil is money. These oligarchs, I hate saying that word, make their power off of money. And we have the same thing here. Exxon, BP, they come in, and here in Louisiana, they come in and drill on your land, whether you like it or not. They're going to drill underneath, and you could be standing there and miss out, or you can take the money. But it's kind of like, now you took the bribe. So the source of these people, World War II was a problem about the Japanese wanting to take over oil areas in the ocean. And we see it with China today. But we have bailed. We've turned over Cuba, to the missiles, bombers in Venezuela. We've left Syria. We're still hanging with the Saudis. I'm not sure why they have oil. So when I tell you about hydrogen peroxide, this is the thing that, let the Russians have the oil. If we had something else, we'd let them have the oil. Let them take it over. You know, they'll go broke if there's something else that works better. So I see the world different than a lot of people. I see we don't need the oil and we don't need to fight over it. We have enough oil for us here in America. And I'm trying to get us to do something different. And the funny part is, the government's keeping this a secret about hydrogen peroxide. The government uses it every day. I was going to show you my NASA contract. I'll show it in a later video. Found it the other day. I've been licensed by NASA to make hydrogen peroxide. The thing says they want to do it at the point of retail sale, basically. You know, small plants that are operated locally. You know, I was proud to do that as my American. I hope I contributed knowledge somehow. And I published a SAE paper on hydrogen peroxide as a renewable, pollution-free fuel, and they didn't want me to say that. They're powered by oil companies. But I'm glad there's YouTube in that I can say these things. And so when you see the president, think about it. Is he... I don't even want to think about the president. I think we need a different one that stands up to the Russians and not let them... You know, I'm a peace marching hippie, but I do see sticking up for people. Ukraine, I see they need help to fight off the Russians. Russia may not be the biggest economy, but they're bigger than Ukraine. And I hope we get rid of all the corrupt politicians. So thanks for watching. I hope I give you a different perspective on what's going on.